You're likely looking at one of the most infamous paintings in art history, John Singer Sargent's Madame X. This isn't just a portrait, it's the centerpiece of a scandal that rocked Parisian high society and forever changed the lives of the artist and his sitter. But to understand the drama, we need to go back to the man behind the brush and the woman who posed. John Singer Sargent was born in Florence in 1856 to American expatriate parents. From a young age, his mother recognized his exceptional talent and took an active role in nurturing it. She introduced him to the works of masters like Velázquez and Goya, giving him early exposure to the richness of European art. When he turned 18, his family moved to Paris. At the time, the city was the vibrant center of the art world. Sargent began studying under Carolus Duran, a celebrated portrait painter with a bold modern style. Under his guidance, Sargent learned to paint directly onto the canvas, focusing on light and shadow instead of outlines. His ability to build form through tonal values gave his portraits a striking sense of life and immediacy. Sargent's talent became obvious early in his career, but success in Paris demanded more than skill. The Paris Salon was the most prestigious art exhibition of its era, drawing thousands of submissions each year. In such a competitive space, gaining recognition was a daunting challenge. Sargent began to make his mark in 1879 with a striking portrait of Carolus Duran, which earned critical praise. By 1883, he was known as a psychological master for his ability to capture the inner life of his subjects. This sensitivity allowed him to capture what many called their innermost secrets. He also built strong relationships, including a close friendship with writer Henry James, an important supporter of his work. But praise alone wasn't enough. To rise above the noise and truly stand out, Sargent knew he had to create something bold, something unforgettable. During this ambitious phase of his career, Sargent met Virginie Gautreau, a striking figure in Parisian high society. Born in Louisiana, she moved to Paris after her father's death in the Civil War and married a wealthy banker. Known as a professional beauty, she was also notorious for her numerous extramarital affairs, frequently featured in gossip magazines. One of her lovers was the celebrated gynecologist, Dr. Samuel Jean Pacy, whom Sargent had painted in a portrait already criticized for its overtly sexual swagger. In search of a sensation for the 1884 Salon, Sargent decided to paint Virginie Gautreau, not for money, but for the attention her portrait would surely attract. Convincing her was difficult. Gautreau was hesitant and took months to agree. With help from friends like Dr. Pazy, she finally consented in early 1883, but insisted the sittings take place at her estate in Brittany. The sessions were challenging. Sargent found her beauty difficult to capture and her laziness frustrating. She was restless, easily bored, and often interrupted the work. Gautreau herself grew impatient with the time required. Despite these difficulties, the portrait turned out striking. It showed Gautreau leaning against a table, her body facing forward, but her head sharply in profile. She wore a bold black satin gown with sparkling straps and a tightly cinched waist. Her pose was both sensual and distant. Before the salon opened, he felt something about it was risky. Perhaps the outfit or her look. He was right. The scandal came from one detail: a single strap slipping off her shoulder, suggesting an intimacy that society would not tolerate. When the painting was unveiled at the 1884 Paris Salon, it sparked an enormous scandal. Crowds gathered to jeer, calling the work detestable and monstrous. Critics objected to the sensual pose, the low neckline showing too much skin, and her pale complexion, which some claimed looked unhealthy or arsenic-bleached. But the fiercest outrage focused on the falling strap. Combined with her visible wedding ring, it was seen as a sign of loose morals, implying a forbidden sexual relationship. Unlike Manet's Olympia years earlier, who was understood to be a prostitute, Gautreau was a prominent member of high society. By presenting her this way, Sargent forced Parisians to confront their own hypocrisy regarding discretion and morality, which they resented. Furthermore, Sargent was a foreigner, seen as flaunting immorality, with a painting of another foreigner. Critics were merciless, describing the pose as ridiculous, the coloring terrible, and the features exaggerated. They felt the painting cemented Gautreau's reputation as a loose woman, and by extension, made Sargent the painter of a loose woman. Both Sargent and Gautreau were reportedly absolutely terrified by the furious backlash, as they had not anticipated such a strong reaction. The scandal spread quickly, igniting a press frenzy filled with caricatures and satire. Gautreau, who had hoped the portrait would raise her social standing, instead became the subject of public ridicule and harsh questioning of her morals. Her mother was so distraught that she demanded Sargent remove the painting and even threatened a duel, claiming he had destroyed her daughter's reputation and future. However, salon rules prevented him from removing it during the exhibition run. After the salon closed, Sargent finally agreed to Gautreau's mother's request and repainted the controversial strap, placing it firmly on her shoulder. However, the scandal left lasting marks. In Paris, Sargent faced social rejection, and commissions soon dried up. Following the advice of his friend Henry James, he moved to London, taking Madame X with him. He kept the painting in his studio, calling it his best work and using it as a bold, scandalous calling card. Though he didn't find immediate success in London, the notoriety from Paris combined with his talent eventually made him the leading portraitist of British high society. His career flourished both in the UK and later in the US. As for Gautreau, she faced some exclusion from parts of Parisian high society, though reports may have exaggerated her banishment. She used the attention to her advantage, building a career as an actress and hostess. She even commissioned other portraits that echoed Sargent's style and pose, embracing her newfound notoriety. She lived what many described as a happy life, until her death in 1915. Interestingly, around the same time, Sargent painted a portrait of Dr. Samuel Jean Pazzi on a similar scale. Some believe these two portraits were meant as a pair, subtly referencing the well-known affair between Pazzi and Gautreau. If the public had recognized this connection, the scandal would have been even greater. Sargent kept Madame X for nearly 30 years. In 1916, a year after Gautreau's death, he sold it to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York on the condition it be renamed Madame X and her identity kept secret. He believed it to be the best thing I have ever done. Despite the initial uproar and disruption in 1884, Madame X remains today John Singer Sargent's most famous and enduring masterpiece. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the story behind Madame X, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you won't miss our future explorations of art's most fascinating stories. Also, let me know in the comments which famous artworks or scandals you'd like us to uncover next.